We are going to talk about the presentation of a new research, a new rating of the efficiency, national efficiency rating, presentation of Ukraine's first national efficiency evaluation system, the state apparatus and branches of power. We just talked about the failure to consider the draft law about the civil service, but this is really a very topical issue, and that's why I would like to ask the authors of this research to tell us what's it's all about, how it can improve the efficiency of the civil service. You have the floor. Good morning, esteemed colleagues. Thank you very much for this introduction. Oleg Honcharenko, the government of the different idea. We gathered here in order to talk about efficiency. This is really very kind of borrowed term from some foreign language, but just to explain what we are going to do and what we have already have done. For over less than 1 year of the new authorities, so after the Revolution Dignity, we understood that there is demand in the society how the public at large can influence the, let's say, the bodies of power. And we understood that there were a lot of populistic statements on the part of many political leaders, but we have not seen some substantial changes, transformations in the economy and the reforms. But there are some changes and transformation, which I'm going to talk about later. After we carried out this analysis, we came to understand that there should be some efficient tool to evaluate the work of each of ministries, deputies, and generally speaking, the whole vertical of the power. And that's why we used our experience, which we accumulated while studying abroad or in the national domestic universities. In our experience of work in the real sector of the economy, which allows us to efficiently evaluate the work of the officials based, on its framework, and we actually drew from the source of experience of some other countries, in Malaysia, in Poland, in Singapore. We tried to apply it to the Ukrainian reality, and we actually tried to use the best practices which can be used in Ukraine. And actually, we developed the national rating of efficiency. According to that rating, we use some indicators and figures which have to be we use to assess those indicators. Then we carried out analysis of different ministries for the year 2014-2015 for the first quarter of each year. What we are going to do next, we are going to update the indicators for each of the next quarters, and we can watch or follow the dynamics of the what's going on in each ministry, in each public agency or body. Let's start from the key ministers, and we can start with the Minister of Economy. Recently, we heard the presentation of the Minister of Economy from the point of view of strategy of development of Ukrainian economy. Our experts actually studied this strategy and actually came to their own conclusions or findings. First of all, we were a bit surprised by the indicators established for this ministry. For example, doubling the GDP over the next 15 years. We understand that today in Ukraine this indicator, this GDP, is very low, and I believe they just make it twice as big over the next 15 years. This is not really a big target. I believe that in 15 years we have to reach the level of Poland, which 17-18 $100 per capita per day. If we're going talking about $300 per capita, this is almost 3 times lower than we had in 2013. So the question is our economy moving towards along the proper way? We can see some transformation. The regulation of the economy, for example, this is a positive transformation. But we also would like to mention and to focus our attention on that the economy doesn't mean only the regulation. Many countries which were fastly moving ahead, like the Southern Korea or Singapore, or the countries which won their freedom in other nukes of the world, they were making very big strides in order to reach the level of GDP per capita which they have today. And they were doing that only through the regulation, but through the regulatory policy, because the Minister of Economy is that body which actually dictates the direction of the development, excuse me, and which sectors will have preferences in this or another perspective. We understand that we don't have that perspective or plan in Ukraine. That's why those indices, indicators which we are proposing can be used in order to show how efficient or non-efficient works this minister. Now, next is the Minister of Finance. You know under which conditions we are living today. The increase of the state debt and inflation rate. But there is one but. Everybody would like to see the renovation or let's say of the power, but we are living through a situation when the situation with the corruption and the return of the VAT hasn't been changed. We have this kind of kick off, which was case under Yanukovych, still here today. You would like to attract investments. This specific corruption component must be overcome or combated as soon as possible. Next, Anti-Corruption Bureau, which was established quite recently. It took us almost a year to find a person who can be the head of that bureau, but we haven't reached any result. The level of corruption in Ukraine is one of the highest in the world over. Unfortunately, it hasn't changed. We understand that the steps taken in the General Prosecutor's office by the Deputy General Prosecutor, Mrs. Sikorilidze, will lead us to some steps in that bureau which will enable us to come up with some fast and efficient cleaning of the powers. Without that, we cannot attract any investments. We cannot persuade the investors to come to Ukraine. Without that, we won't be able to achieve growth in the Ukrainian economy. Now, the Ministry of the Interior. I'm not talking about the level of trust to the, let's say, judicial branch or to the Ministry of the Interior, but we are trying to do something, not to provide some kind of facelifting, of the outside or exterior, but with the same content. No, we are trying to create new police, and we hope that this will appear in this country rather soon. And a new policeman, the number of policemen in Ukraine is almost 3 times more than the average European figure. And this indicator will show us how fast we move along the lines of reform. There are some changes, but they are not sufficient yet. Next is the Minister of Defense. We know that Ukraine finds itself in the state of war with the aggressor country, and we understand that the efficiency, if we are talking about supporting the army, must be a key one for all the functionaries in the Ministry of Defense. We hope that soon we won't hear about some scandals about some procurement, about the failure to provide all the necessary things for our fighters in the front line. In the figures which I mentioned before, which we're going to publish every quarter, will allow us whether we reach some progress or fail to reach any progress in each of the ministry. Summing up our today's presentation, I would like to emphasize the following. Number one, we are going to demand that those efficiency indicators be adopted by the authorities for the evaluation of the efficiency of work. Not just verbal statements that I did something, I'm a good guy. No, we would like to see the specific figures so that each ministry would be responsible for the work of his or her ministry using the figures and through communication with the public at large. And the TV channels are kind of, let's say, the channel for communication with the whole Ukraine. They say that the level of corruption diminished, that the GDP increase or whatever. Only through this or via this we will increase the level of political let's say, literacy of Ukraine. We are moving towards European Union. We understand that almost none of the politicians in the EU would not find his way or her way to the parliament. Why? Because the people coming to election booths, they are not voting for the populists. They're voting for the people who are taking care of some specific changes. And we would like to have that situation in Ukraine. Thank you.
You told at the beginning that you took as a basis to develop a methodology, Western practices. Could you give the list? What do you mean? What's the point? Do you compare just open data and you look at dynamics, or what's the point of that research, of that rating? Thank you very much for your question. What's the point of that rating? The point is that we would like to put the work of any minister, deputy minister, into the field of numbers. We would like to have a concrete responsibility of what is happening in the ministry. And what we did, like you asked, it's not anything new. In Malaysia, for example, when they were changing their system, they thought, okay, what is necessary for the economy to develop? Okay, let's appoint the minister whom we invited. Let's have indexes. Let's develop indexes of his efficiencies. This is the way the business is functioning. But sale growth is compared to GDP growth in Ukraine. And it's normal index. And if we wanted to see changes, that's the way it has to work. We cannot say, you're a good guy, and because I know you. This is the way it works now. But when the president takes that indicator, and it doesn't matter whether it's the minister from his party or the party from his opponent, he sees by numbers that that minister gives very good results. The numbers show that his ministry improves efficiency, his ministry gives more jobs, or transparency of competitions. It shows that indicates that they do correct things, and then the citizens will decide whether it's true or not. But because of the numbers, you can see that more efficiently. Just to continue. Almost every 2 weeks, we have a National Council of Reforms. For every council on reforms, we prepare quite a big report, and with the monitoring of implementation of planned work. That is what should be done. There is a tactical task as to implementation of reforms, and they have some result-oriented numbers. And what's the difference between that and your? Because every 2 weeks we see that numbers, there is also an assessment of efficiency of public servants who are responsible for reforms. Very good question. But I'm sure that in this audience, if you ask who knows about those indexes in the National Council of Reforms, even I will not do that because I don't know them. The main goal is that every citizen of Ukraine should receive those indexes, and these are not just numbers for a group of people to get together and look at them. But there is this second question: why, according to those indexes, none of our leaders of the country asked the question to me, why do we have such slow dynamics of growth, like economic growth? Look, in 15 years, they suggested to live us worse than we lived in 2013. Is it so? Do we want it? My answer is no. And I want our citizens to feel they are citizens of EU. And in EU, they have quite different numbers. And for people to press on the president, on the parliament, and on the cabinet ministers, only then we'll see changes. Now there is a request, demand for that in the society, because you represent that this research as a rating, which is, we have to understand that there are first, second, third place. You compared indexes of activity of the ministry in 2014 and 2015, the first quarter. Can you tell us which ministry is the most efficient, as your study shows? Thank you. Yes, but not on this stage. We can provide that, but not the right ratings and to assess, and also this is ministers. But what is the expert assessment? This is the assessment of what I feel. I have some likes to a certain minister. By why this system is attractive? It's not what I feel, but it's what I see. If somebody comes and says, they ask, why do I assess a minister who is negative, but he has positive results? That's the question to him also. We see that Rayton introduces the system of no competition about ministries, among ministries. There will be ministries who are good, and there will be the first leaders. There will be ministries that will be in the back, but it's life. It will be a signal for the prime minister and the president to make comments about their work, and after, if there are no conclusions from such feedbacks, we would like to see changes. Thank you. On this good note about changes, I would like to thank you and come again with the results of the second stage for 3 months. And we expect to see you in Ukrainian Media Center.